Although there's nothing wrong with being left-handed, around 10% of the world's population are.
Well, famous lefties include Leonardo da Vinci, Albert Einstein and The Simpsons creator Matt Groening. And left-handed Jimi Hendrix famously played a right-handed guitar upside down.
I'm not left-handed, are you?
Well, they used to try and put the pen in your opposite hand, didn't they, not that long ago for kids because they didn't think you should be left-handed. So, yeah. No, I'm left-footed but right-handed. A bit confused.
There you go. Well, they say left-handed people are more creative, but if it's the right side of our brains that supposedly control our feelings, imagination and how artistic we are, how does that work?
Well, Jack, you remember that the left side of our body is controlled by the right side of our brains. So maybe all that extra input from our left hands stimulates the creative juices flowing in our right brains, which is a really great theory, except there doesn't seem to be any proof that lefties really are more creative. Sorry.
But you know what? I've always wanted to be left-handed myself because I feel like the coolest people are left-handed. Barack Obama, left-handed. Brad Pitt, left-handed. I've observed those two people. I don't know why they're stuck in my mind.
Well, they might be very cool, although for 2 or so million left-handed Aussies, some everyday challenges still exist.
Every day in her Brisbane studio, Dee Gillette Cox creates breathtaking works of art by doing something she would never have dared to do as a child, using her left hand.
When I was a wee girl in primary school, it was apparently a heinous, hideous, evil thing to be left-handed. So what they would do when I was caught using my left hand to write or the like, I mean, I'm 5. What was I doing? Drawing things? I don't know. But I would have to stand on top of my desk and then they would beat the back of my legs with a wooden ruler to punish me. I remember bleeding from being hit so hard, and I remember the humiliation. And I was 5, so I super remember being scared that I'd pee my pants while I was standing on that desk being smacked. It was horrible. It was truly traumatisingly horrible.
It's hard to believe today, but until about 50 years ago, this sort of treatment was common for left-handers all over the world. As far back as the Stone Age, lefties have only made up about 10% of the population, which means throughout history, this trait has been considered bad luck at best and just plain wicked at worst.
I research a lot about art. I did discover that Eve, as in Adam and Eve, is historically portrayed as having 2 left hands because having one regular left hand didn't make the woman evil enough. That was shocking to discover that.
It turns out that you can't tell whether someone's good or evil by looking at which hand they favour. But genetic epidemiologist Professor David Evans says there's a lot we can learn from studying this trait.
Whether you're right or left-handed is correlated with what's going on in the brain. So, for example, people who are right-handers are much more likely to be very lateralized in terms of their brain function and have their language centers in the left hemisphere. Whereas individuals who are left-handed, it's more likely that they have less lateralization and you have language in both hemispheres rather than just the left. If we've got a good understanding of laterality in the brain, then this has implications for developing treatments in the case of stroke, epilepsy, or trauma, where you've got damage to a particular part of the brain.
In 2020, Professor Evans and his colleagues at the University of Queensland collaborated with the QIMR, Berghofer Medical Research Institute, to conduct the largest study to date into the genetic factors that determine handedness.
We found 41 genes which were associated with being a left-hander and 7 genes that were associated with being ambidextrous. So the reason why that's significant is that nobody knows what causes left-handedness. So if we can find genes that are involved in somehow determining whether someone is left-handed or not, that provides us with clues as to the underlying biology of why people become left-handers.
But it turns out genetics are only a tiny piece of the puzzle.
Handedness is a really unusual trait in that it's mostly determined by the environment. So normally when you look at traits like height or various diseases, Normally it's kind of around about 50% genetic and 50% environmental, but handedness is really unusual in that it's predominantly due to environmental factors.
Just what those environmental factors are remains unclear. But as Sydney-based lefty Steve McWork will tell you, there's no question we live in a right-hander's world.
Back when our youngest daughter, who's left-handed, was 7, she decided one night she wanted to feed the dog. And we went to open the can of dog food, and she struggled with the right-handed, the standard can opener, the only can opener we had, and we ended up having major tantrums. And of course the dog had to be fed by somebody else.
Steve's fruitless search for a left-handed can opener inspired him to start up his online business, Lefties, Australia's only retailer of left-handed products.
So the most popular product group that we have is scissors. When we use a pair of scissors, we are pushing with the thumb and pulling with the fingers. And what that does is it moves on the pivot to cause the blades to actually rub against each other and cut the piece of paper. If you're using the wrong scissors in those hands, then it causes the blades to splay apart and they don't cut.
Since starting up in 2003, Steve's little family business has grown to stock over 300 products, including left-handed veggie peelers, garden tools and measuring jugs. But he reckons most right-handers would be surprised at just how many other everyday items aren't left-hand friendly.
Well, where do you start? The turnstiles at the train station, you know, when you put your Opal card, that's the right hand. The microwave oven, the FPOS machine, if you're swiping your card, the swipe slot is on the right-hand side of the keypad. Chainsaws and circular saws, the whippersnipper and the lawnmower, the zip pull on those, power drills, all those sorts of things, they're all set just for the right-hander.
Despite the many little challenges, Steve couldn't be prouder to be part of this exclusive club. After all, he's in pretty good company.
1 out of 4 astronauts was left-handed, so, you know, double the normal population. We have, you know, perfect role models for us of examples of creativity, like, you know, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo. 6 of the last 8 US presidents were all left-handed. As a group, we're adaptable, whether it be through necessity or ability, and that lends us to be able to work with whatever comes our way.
I wish I could get those old teachers who beat me for being left-handed, my sewing teacher who would look at my work that had 4 dodgy right-hand stitches from when she was watching me and 7 good left-handed ones for when her vision was elsewhere. All of them, I'd like to line them all up and go, right, everybody, excuse me, do you see what the hand does now?